Hi, welcome back. This is Roy, and Val's back with us this week, so she decided to grace us with her presence.
I didn't have anything better to
She
do.
had anything else better to do. But mainly it's just she's here to make sure that I don't say anything too stupid, I think is what it's about. So thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about kilns and kiln controllers mainly, and we're going to talk a little bit about programming them. And because of that, we'll probably talk about a firing schedule or two. I think Kaylee's already uploaded it on our website. Or
Yes,
on,
I will be. I will be sharing it to Facebook and Instagram, the firing schedule that we're going over today.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll probably pan to it every now and then. But one of the things that, a couple of things we want to say first, I'll say about the firing schedule is that, you know, every kiln is unique. And so the firing schedules that we're offering up really, I mean, they work well for what we're doing here at Delphi with the kilns we're using, but it's possible that you might have to adjust and alter either the temperature or hold time or something.
Right.
So, you know, I tell everyone, you know, take anybody's firing schedule with a grain of salt. I mean, you really don't know if the schedule works until you try it in your kiln. So,
But we like to give it because it's a really good starting place. It's
Yeah.
just a real general fusing cycle and slumping cycle. And so if you note that it's around this 5-inch, sort of 5-inch square, then it should really be a good starting point for you. And then you can make adjustments depending on size and mass and things. So, but we feel like it's a good ballpark.
yeah, and like you said, I think it's a good starting point. Anyways, we are going to talk about controllers, and one of the things that I like to remind people about is that the kiln manufacturers don't actually make the controllers. You know, there's different companies that make the controllers, and they put them on their kilns, right? So you might notice, like from, well, we do anyways, from manufacturer to manufacturer, that a lot of times the controllers are very similar. They might not be exact, but for the most part, they're pretty close. So we're not going to show necessarily a bunch of kilns today. We are going to try to show you a few different controllers, though. So in fact, one of the controllers is not even attached to a kiln, so it's just the controller. So I think probably first what we have to do is just talk about, you know, what we used to do back in the day before there were all these fancy digital controllers. We used to use
Back in the olden days.
Back in the olden days, right? It makes us sound old, but
Oh my gosh, we're not.
we used a kiln with a controller like this. This particular controller is what's called an infinite switch, and you can see it has a dial on it. And for the most part, you know, it's just like low, medium, high. There's some numbers in there, and you'll also see there's a parameter on here, right? The parameter is the device that's telling us the temperature inside the kiln. The slight disadvantage to a controller like this is that, you know, once you turn the kiln on, you have to be there and
Yeah.
until it's done. I mean, the kiln won't shut off on its own, so someone has to be there to shut it
Yeah.
off.
Definitely a babysitting situation.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, if you're doing like a normal firing schedule for at least probably the 4.5 or 5 hours of the firing schedule, you're there by the kiln, right, monitoring it, making sure it doesn't go too fast.
And most importantly, making sure you turn it off.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't shut off by itself either.
It does not shut off. No. We were looking at this kiln earlier, and it actually.
Has a couple issues.
Yeah, a couple
based
issues
on
there.
the fact that someone obviously didn't turn it off in time.
But we're going to talk about if you have questions about that one or anything that we're talking about, you know, feel free to, you know, make a comment in the section below the video, or you can always send us a message on Facebook or Instagram, or you can email us right at Facebook at delphiglass.com. So, because we're not going to talk a lot about the infinite switch one, I think, you know, most people today are more interested in these digital controllers.
It actually, you know, but it actually can be beneficial. I mean, there's certain things we do that we like having that because we can just turn it on high, but it's always a situation that we're monitoring it. So it's never, you know, it's never go away and leave it and come back thinking you can really know what's happening. You just have to monitor. So we do vitrographs, and there's some little things that we can do quick and
Rakings, I do small rakings
yeah.
or combings in there.
When all we're interested in is just getting the glass soft, getting the temperature up and getting it soft. We're not really interested in calculating how fast it's going, or so it's really nice for that. But you know, other than that, it's much easier to have one that you don't have to.
Yes.
You can just tell it what to do and let it go. Yeah.
So I think we'll, let me just show the controllers briefly, and then we'll go into them a little bit more, or some of them anyways. So the one here that's in front of Val is we just refer to a lot of it as a 3-button controller is what it's called. You'll see that these are the buttons, even though there's not really like a button, but you know. And then this one you can see it has Delphi's name on it. So this is one that we put on a lot of our Easy Pro kilns. The 15.6 or the Profusion 16, it's a square fiber kiln, if you're familiar with that one, or one that's similar in size to this one over here. And then the controller on this one is a Ramp Master. And you can see just, you know, sometimes we refer to it, I've heard them called like a 10 button or a 12 button controller, because I don't really know how many buttons are on there, but
We didn't count them.
but we didn't count them.
No.
But there is, but it has a keypad, right? So you can, all the numbers are there. And the last one then is this one over here, which is the tap screen. This one happens to be also on a Delphi kiln, the 15.6 Easy Pro. So, and we'll show you this one a little bit more, how that one's done. But I think Val's going to start out with going over some of the how to program a 3-button one.
3-button?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to jump in real quick. So she's going to program this and show you how to do it. Again, we're not going to show every little feature that the controller can do, but just if you're interested in learning how to do some basic programming, we brought this. If you've seen any of our other videos, we showed this when we were talking about fusing in general. And so we thought we would shoot program like this, how we did this particular piece, how we did the full fuse, and then how we did the slump. So I think Val's going to program the full fuse, and then I'll program a slump on a different one.
All right, you want me to go all the way through it?
Yeah, but I got one last thing, and then I'll let you talk. I promise.
Okay, well,
So
I'm not in any
if you
hurry.
haven't seen it, if you're wondering about the past videos we've done, you can always go to our video page on Facebook or check out our YouTube channel. So how was that pitching
So
for us?
that was good, except for the 3-button, you're going to make me do the 4 segments.
Yeah. Well, I can do it on this one if you like.
No, I'm just kidding. But the difference between, I mean, this one, first of all, it's less expensive, right?
Yes.
So that's a reason often sometimes I think when you order a kiln, you can actually have a choice as to what kind of controller in terms of a 3-button or the actual number. The difference simply is that this one, you arrow up and you arrow down. So when I push stop, it's actually showing me the COE I want. So if I want 90, I would push the first button, which is like the enter. If I want 96, I would pick that. But this arrow is just running through what my options are. So I either can pick 90, 96, or custom. Is that right? No, user.
They use, yeah. This particular one that we
User.
get from GenCan, the kiln comes from GenCan, they say user, but sometimes on a 3-button controller, it might say custom there.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it says program even.
Right. So this one just means that I don't want a pre-programmed 90 or 96 program. I want to put my own in. So I picked that one because in this particular situation, that was the one that meant I'm going to program it myself. So then it's asking me for what program, and we just played around a little bit, and actually this is the program where you can enter your information and then it saves it, and you could just, next time you turn it on, you could just go to program 1 and know it's going to run what you previously programmed. Actually, it has 25, we just discovered, so there's a lot of space to hold 25 different. So we'll get to 25 and then it goes back to 1. So you literally could program 25 different fusing programs and then refer to them, you know?
This is where keeping track of your firing schedules is really helpful, either having a notebook or noting. So program 1 is X project for you or X firing schedule. That way you know what is in the kiln without having to go through it.
So basically, so program 1, if say I already have a program in there, so I don't want to use that, I'm going to go to program 2, and then when I get to where I want to go, once again, you always push the first button, which is kind of like your enter key. So now it's ramp 1. It's asking us for ramp 1. So within a firing schedule, they're going to ask, within a segment, they're going to ask you for 3 different things. One is they're going to ask you how fast you want the temperature to climb, which is called ramp. The second thing they're going to ask me is what temperature do I want to go to? And the third is going to ask me how long do I want to stay there? So in this situation, I'm going to go 300 degrees an hour. So that means I have to arrow up and hold it
So this is why, you know, sometimes it's not the most desirable. So I'm at 302. I'm not gonna mess around and go down 2 little digits. I'm gonna call that good. So I'm gonna push enter. So that's how fast I'm going, 300 degrees an hour. To what temperature did I wanna go to? I wanted to go to 1,000.
And again, we will be posting these after our video today, so you can save these firing schedules.
And you can, there's a place to go in there to change that to Celsius if that works better for you. I don't know if you noticed, when Val was there, it said degrees F, you know, for Fahrenheit.
So see, the difference is if you had the controller with the pad on it with the numbers, you would just, you know, you would just go 1 0 0 0 and you'd be done. This one, like I said, is a little more time consuming just because you have to, see, I can go back down and go right to 1,000 if you really want to. So that's where we're going. So then I'm going now, see it's flashing my hold time. HD stands for hold, so that's the third and last question that's asking me in this segment. So when we said we're gonna hold for 15 minutes.
And anything after the decimal is an hour in front of the decimal.
Yeah, in front of the decimal. Okay, so that was the first segment. So that started out with RA1, then it asked me those 3 things. I programmed it in. So now this is saying RA2, which means ramp 2. So this would be my second segment. So let me just do the second segment. I don't think I have to do the whole thing, do I?
Probably not. Sorry.
I mean, just to kind of show you, this is, but you know, you have to have your information to put in there. That's all it is. But when you get used to it, it's just, now that I'm in the second segment, it's going to ask me the same 3 questions, right? So ramp 2, whoops. See, it's hard to do it upside down, sorry. So it's on, so now it's off. So if I want to go back, so I accidentally started it, so I stopped it. Now I'm going to go back, it says idle. So remember I was in program 2, ramp 1, 300 to 1,000.
The nice thing is that
Hold
it does
15
remember
minutes.
it, right?
Yep.
I mean, so whatever you put in there. So if you're programming your kiln and you get frustrated or you forget where you're at, you can see that if you get out of it and then come back in, it's usually right there waiting for you.
So this is my second segment. I'm doing the same thing. Same speed as 300 degrees an hour. Enter. To 1,000. No, what am I going to here? 1225.
Yeah, so to me, I know one of the nice things about these is when you're programming them, it tells you like which segment you're on, right? So, and if you have it written down in front of you, you just have to glance back down on the paper if you lose your place. This is the most exciting
Yeah,
part.
this is exciting. I'm
Just
like,
watching the numbers scroll up.
yeah. It's kind of making me dizzy.
Yeah, I often don't have the patience for it personally, and it just seems like that's unlike you. I'll go to like,
I know. So we'll just say
1003 or
1,200. We're
whatever,
going to
we'll
go
get close,
to,
whatever.
and then we're going to hold that for 15 minutes. So you get it, I think. You know, whoops. And
Now we're at an hour and 5 minutes.
yeah, we're not. You know, like I said, upside down is a bit. Okay. So as long as with this particular one, as long as I have a segment that I want to enter, it'll keep letting me enter it, right?
Yes.
And then once I get done, it'll be the next ramp will say 0, and I just ignore it, and then I can go ahead and then push this button to start it.
Yeah, as Val mentioned earlier, the when we're talking about firing schedules, they're made up of what's called segments, right? And then I think Val had mentioned that a segment is ramp, temperature, and hold. So each segment asks us that question. And so what's some of the controllers, like the one Val just showed you, we just start programming it. It's not asking us how many segments our firing schedule has. We just start programming on the first segment. And then when you get to a point where you want to stop, you leave the next segment at 0. So at the ramp speed, you wouldn't give it any ramp speed. You would just say 0, and then the controller knows that you're done. Some 3-button controllers at the very beginning, the first thing it asks you is, how many segments you want. And I can tell you what's confusing about them sometimes is, you know, they have to abbreviate the words, you know, on this little screen. So I think it just says SEG, which kind of looks like a 6.
Yeah.
And then you tell it, like in this case, we were doing a 4 segment, so we would say 4, and then from there, it walks you right through it, just like Val showed you. So again, it asks you how fast you want to go, what temperature you want to
It's
go
always,
to.
it's always these 3 things that you have to know.
Yep.
And and even though these vary, and we were talking about it, the concept is the same really for all of them, but the different manufacturers will have a little bit of a different, you know, verbiage or
Yes.
different, like we just talked about here, custom versus whatever you said it was program. But usually if you get confused, you can always go to the manual, like Google the manual of the actual controller you have, and they'll have a paper in there or a sheet in there that actually shows you all their abbreviations for that particular controller. So sometimes you look at it and think, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, it you know, lots of people wouldn't know unless they looked at their manual, and it shows you what that means. Like right when I stopped it, it said ABORT.
Abort, yeah. Yeah.
So people could figure that out probably, but you know.
But a lot of them just say stop, which is, you know, again, but it is,
Yeah. And we'll just say, like I said, this one is often, it's really not as, we're used to being able just to go, you know, 300 to 1000, you know, and it is much nicer just to be able to type in when you have a keypad that you can do that. But this one really isn't that big a deal.
yeah, I wish, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you, but
No.
they, you know, all the controllers do the same thing. I mean, they really do. So, and again, that is entering a program, and it tells you, you know, you're telling it how fast you want it to go, what temperature, and how long to stay there. They all do the same thing. You just enter the information a little differently. Like in this case, we're using the arrows to get us to a different screen or to get us a value, right? We go higher or lower. If we had one of the 10-button controllers, like as Val mentioned, we could just punch the numbers straight in. Again, they're doing the same thing. It's just really how we're entering the information that's a little different.
And they are, you know, I get it. People get confused, and it does get a little overwhelming. But I can tell you, we were just talking about it because I have these on a lot of my beta kneelers in my classroom, and they're a little different than this one. So, you know, I just say, well, you know, I'll just kind of bang around and bang through it. And then if I get confused and I think, oh, I'm nowhere where I want to be, it's really as simple as just turning it off and turning it back on, and then you just start over. So there's no reason to get, you know, anxious and upset and wonder if you're confused about where you are in that firing schedule or in your programming. Just turn it off and turn it back on. Start over again. It's not, you know,
it's
easy to do that. So I think that always helped me in the beginning, thinking that I wasn't going to have to just turn it on and then figure out what the heck I'd done.
Yeah, and the other nice thing too is, like, I mean, you don't have to do anything until you turn it on too, right? So I mean, until you actually hit the start part of it, you have lots of time to go back in and look at the program, make sure it's the right one. You know, one of the things that I always do is there's a review button on here. So these 3 buttons on this one, they do multiple things, as Val mentioned before. This first button is like an enter button, like on a computer, but it's also a start and stop button. This one is an increase button, but it's also is the one that shows us the different options that we have. This last one is not only just a decrease, but it's also a review. So it gives you the option while the kiln is even running to hit that button, and it will just run through the program that you turned on. So you have a chance to check it to make sure that's the right one. You know, I do a lot of my programming or firing at night sometimes, and so I always check before I walk away, or even here in the classrooms, you know, before I walk away from the kiln, I always hit the review button to make sure that it's running the program that I think it's running, and hopefully I picked the right one.
So anyway, these are...
Yeah, and then let me show you the touch screen one. This is what they call a tap controller. So it's a touch screen. Real quick, I wanted to, if we can get back to the 3-button one, I just want to show you, this is normal, right? This is what all the controllers do when they're not running. When the kiln is not technically on and running, it says idle. Right, and then it'll just go back to whatever the temperature is that's inside the kiln at that particular time, right? So in this case, it should be room temperature because the kiln's not on, but that's normal. I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, this one's actually not even plugged into a kiln. So here's the tap controller. This is what this one does when it's kind of sleeping, right? the screen just turns dark and it tells you again the same deal. This is the temperature it thinks it is inside the kiln. If we touch the screen, we get this. This is what the main screen looks like. What's nice about these tap controllers is that,
Yeah, it's not so easy, is it?
yeah, I know it's hard. I gotta lean over to program this. That usually you can tell where you're at once we start hitting some of these buttons. That there'll be something on the bottom that's going to tell us what screen we're on, and it helps us to try to remember where we're at or where we're going. This particular controller will also hook to Wi-Fi. So if you they have the tap controller, people have an app so you can monitor your kiln. You can't turn it on or turn it off from when you're not near your kiln, but you can at least keep track of what the firing schedule looks like. The oh, let me point out this thing. We were showing this a little bit earlier. So this was on the other controller too, and we didn't really mention what it was, but so the controllers have a relay in them, and the relay is something that is technically turning on the kiln. So the relay turns electricity to the heating element, and it's kind of a simple term. And sometimes the relays are mechanical, and so when the kiln is running, you might hear a clicking noise. That's actually the relay turning on and turning off. And because they're kind of mechanical, they have a life to them, right? They have a cycle to them, and eventually they'll quit working. What's on these kilns is what's called a solid state relay. It is an electronic, so it's not mechanical, and because of that, they put these kind of a heat diffuser on the front of the controller. I think this particular one, you have to put it on yourself, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
a
hard-
sticker. Yep.
it's hard
So these
plastic.
little fins are just helping dissipate the heat. So trying to keep the heat away from the relay so that it doesn't get fried out, right? I mean, that's what that is. So let me show you this one real quick. We'll go back here to the touchscreen, and I know a lot of us, when we think of touch screens, we think of our phones and how easy it is to touch the screen and manipulate the screen. This one is a little trickier. I find a lot of times that something besides my finger works a little bit better. I often use my fingernail to tap on something because I think that works better than the soft part of my skin. The other thing that I use a lot of times is the back end of a pencil, right? The eraser of a pencil, or like a stylus, to try to hit things. So if I touch it, it brings it up. The other reason why I like using a pencil sometimes is, I find my finger sometimes is a little too wide.
Yeah.
When you're trying to be a little precise,
I don't
you'll
think
see
it
in a
has
minute.
enough resistance to it either.
Yeah,
'cause
there's not enough
I can't
resistance,
get it
probably,
to work
but
with my finger either.
So this is how, there's two buttons here on this home screen. This is the home screen, and they're both going to take us to slightly different places, right? Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
good.
I
That
heard
was
something in my throat.
impressive
Sorry.
that you
Shut it off.
so you shut off. That's
Sorry about that. So the menu button, I know that a lot of times people see this bottom button that says start, and they're afraid to touch it because they think it's going to start the kiln.
It is
right?
confusing.
Yeah, I hear
'Cause
that a lot of times.
Yeah,
and-
it's confusing.
But it's not really going to start the kiln. This is just another way of getting to where the programs
Starts
are
the
at.
process.
Yeah, so let me, I'll show you the menu button first. So we come here, you can see that it gives us all these different options, right? I'm not going to go through what all those features are, and it's hard for me to read them upside down, but what we're looking for is the programs. So wherever those are at. Did I?
Schedules,
Schedules, yes.
middle.
Oh, sorry. Okay, here they are, schedules. That's what I was looking for, programs. That's my problem.
See,
So-
I know.
So again, as we were talking about, it's all about terminology, right? They all don't use the same terminology. But so here are the programs. Again, a lot of the kilns, in fact, I think all the digital controllers come pre-programmed with a variety of different schedules, right? Whether it's for 90 or 96, and then, again, depending on whatever process you're trying to do, fuse,
Yep.
slump.
Fire polish.
Fire polish.
All kinds of anneal even.
But we find out most people usually get to a point where those work okay for a while, but then you want to start altering them a little or doing your own. So there's a bunch in here, and then you can see they're all over here. I can scroll through them. Oh, there's not a bunch here at all. We must have got rid of them. The one says blob. I like that. But anyways, you can see we can kind of scroll through them, right? And if I highlight them, then I can come over and I can start editing them. There's a spot here to edit the schedule. It pulls up, and then this gives me a chance to change something that's in there if I want to change it. I can cancel out of it. It'll ask me if I want to cancel. I say yes. Again, I'm using my fingernail. If you can't tell what's going on, I think I'll go back to the pencil. But The only slightly negative thing about this part here is we cannot start the kiln from here. And this is a sometimes confusing thing about the tap controller. So when people go to, again, it was the menu button and then come to the schedules, and you can program in as many schedules as you want in there, but you can't start the kiln from there. So I'm going to take you back to the home screen, which is here. What's nice, I don't know if you saw that again, I was here, these little arrows down here will always just keep taking you back from wherever, you know, the previous screen you were at, and eventually you'll get to the home screen. And then here's where the button that says start. This is where I always go, because this is where I'm going to program the kilns. You'll see it looks just exactly like that other screen that I had up that said schedules. In fact, it says schedule selector right there. And then the same deal. So I have access to all of these programs that are already in there. Or I can add my own, which I'm going to do that here. So here's something that says new schedule, right? So I'm going to touch this one, and then I have this kind of blank screen. So from here, I can add a step is what they're saying. And for our sake, what we've been discussing is things we call a segment. And so that's really what it's asking me to do here is add a segment. And then if you look at the screen, it's just going to walk you through the information it's asking for. So it's asking me how fast do I want to go. So I'm going to come in and put in 300 degrees an hour, right? And then hit the enter button. Now it's going to ask me what temperature I want to go to. I'm going to put in 1,000 degrees. Where was that? It's upside down. And then it's asking me for a hold time. And so similar here is if I want an hour, I would put a decimal point and then 0. But since I just want minutes, I don't have to put the decimal first. You can if you want to, or you can just put in the time. And so here I'm going to put in, we said 15 minutes. This thing is, I think it's up, I think the one should be up there, but whatever. So that's just me, right? Oh, so this one's going to ask me, do I want an alarm? So a lot of the controllers will ask, there's a spot that you could put an alarm in there. And so if I wanted to check the kiln when it hit temperature, I would say yes here, right? And then the other thing it's going to ask me is, I could put an alarm when it was at the end of the hold time, and then it would just be an audible reminder to come check out the kiln, see what's going on, right? So I don't want any of those, so I'm going to say no. And now I have a 1 segment firing schedule, and then so I'm going to add another segment, and so
same thing. This one just allows you to put as many segments in as you need to complete what you want to happen, right? So. Yep. We didn't have to tell it how many segments up front.
Yeah, so, and if you hit something wrong, again, you can just hit the clear button, right? So, I mean, if you find yourself doing something wrong, these are easy to like I said, take care of. So then I can go in and put what I want. Again, I'm putting in a slumping cycle here based on the one that I think Kaylee's going to post, but there's a 10-minute hold time. I might as well do it's asking me again for alarms. I'm saying no. I'm going to add another segment here. This is the last one. Now here we're going to come down and anneal the glass. And I know Val didn't get to that point where she was entering the information for annealing. And so here what I'm asking the kiln to do is come all the way down as fast as it can go. And so what I'm going to enter is all 9s into there, right? So I'm going to put 9999. So if you're looking at like our firing schedule or somebody else's firing schedule, sometimes they'll put all 9s. Sometimes they use the word full. In fact, sometimes on the digital controller, you'll see the word full instead of all 9s. But this one, I'll just put 9s in.
I've also seen as soon or as fast as possible.
Yeah, AFAP. Yeah, you'll see that too, which means as fast as possible. Again, mainly all I'm doing is telling the kiln to shut off and cool on its own until it reaches the annealing temperature, which I'm going to put in here for a second. So I'll put in all 9s here, which again is just telling the kiln to go as fast as it can. I need to pick a temperature. Our project here is a 90 COE, so I'm going to use 900 as the annealing temperature. On the firing schedule that we have written down, we wrote down the annealing temperature. If you're a 96 person, it's 950 degrees. And again, those temperatures aren't something that Val and I just made up. They're what came from the glass manufacturers. So, we figure they know their glass probably better than we do, so we just follow along what they recommend. And then a hold time here. I think we have like 30 minutes written on there. Again, hold times are really totally dependent on the size of the piece. Again, I don't really need any alarms because I don't really care. One last thing then is here, what I like about these touchscreen controllers is I can, I can title it whatever I want to title, right? I'm going to give it a title here, and I can just say slump on it. If I can do this upside down, right? Am I close?
Mm-hmm.
It's not on the keyboard. I know how this has got to be super fascinating video and stuff, right? These people are probably caught up. It's so exciting to watch this guy try to type the word slump. in
Above
here.
the enter.
Standing overhead.
Yeah, man, I just can. Oh, there it is. Right, slump, closing up. So, and then I can hit enter. But I just put slum in there. It's super funny.
It'll work.
Well, you get the idea, right? So, well, I did it on purpose, so now I know it's just mine, right? So, but you know, I know around here at Delphi, like in the classrooms, we often put our initials behind it. Like, so there's one that over there that says slump, and then it says RK behind it, so I know it's the slumping schedule I like to use. Or the other nice thing about being able to title it is you could put down, you know, 10-inch round drape, or you know, you can name the title whatever you want, which I find really easy for me.
As opposed
so.
to trying to keep track of what program you've used. Like
Yeah.
I said, this one has 25 programs, but there's no place for me to actually title them. I just have to keep track of that. I know program 2 is going to be my full fuse for that, you know. So it is a nice feature.
Well, that's why Kaylee had that great point of that you should in the controllers where you can't give it a specific title, you should, you know, have them written down, you know, either typed up on your computer somewhere,
Yeah, you
or
should have a
handwritten down in a
key,
notebook, you
right?
know, that tells you that, you know, program 1's a full fuse or whatever you're doing. So, and then if I want to save it, right, I would just hit save on here. I'm going to actually just cancel it because I don't really need to keep it, but there's a save button. I would save it. Otherwise, I will just hit cancel. It'll ask me, do I really want to cancel it? And I'm saying yeah. But otherwise, it would have popped up in here, as I mentioned earlier. So then all I would have to do, I know that's not my slump one, but all I would have to do is hit it. And then now I can start from this screen, right? So if I hit the start button, the kiln will start up. It's asking me if I want to delay, which is also nice. A lot of the controllers, in fact, all the digital controllers, you can delay the start time. So let's pretend you were doing something and you wanted to, you know, when you got up in the morning, you wanted it at a certain temperature. You could program it to turn on in the middle of the night, and then when you got up in the morning, it'd be the right temperature for whatever you were doing. But I'm just going to say no on that. So it turns on. You can see this is pretty common. These little buttons start turning. They flash on because the heating elements are turning on. This particular kiln has 2 heating elements, so it's letting us know that both heating elements are turning on. You can see that this one's kind of blinking on and off, which is the relay controlling that one. It's going to turn on the heating elements to, you know, to get us to that 300 degrees an hour temperature. Yeah. So what else do we need about controllers? Was that?
I don't know.
Are we doing all right?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
Like I said, the manual is really helpful too. So, you know, don't overthink it and don't feel like you have to read the entire manual. But they can have some helpful tips about, like I say, your abbreviations. And also usually, at least I know in the Ramp Master, because I use it to show people in class, it has a really nice one-page thing that actually just tells you step by step how to enter a program. So if you just find that one piece of paper and just go through it. But I think the biggest thing is to not be afraid of it, and you're not going to hurt it. And if you think you've done something weird, just shut it off and start over again.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to mess them up.
Because you'd be surprised at how quickly you start to feel comfortable with it when you just start.
Yep, you just gotta get in there. Yeah, again, I know Val and I didn't really, you know, show you all the real ins and outs of the controllers. We wanted to kind of just give you a brief preview of what they sort of do. If you have more questions about that, you know, please get a hold of us. You know, we're happy to try to answer them, or maybe we do another video someday about getting into a particular controller a little bit more involved. But at the moment, I think that should probably at least get you started so you can start firing your.
Yeah, exactly. Start using your controller.
Yeah, or give you, you know, questions about, you know, if you're looking at which ones to purchase, right? Too. I mean, you can see what. Well, hopefully, we showed you some of the features of those.
Okay.
So otherwise, I think we're good,
We'll
right?
see you
So,
next time.
All right, sounds
thanks for
great.
coming. See you
And
guys next time.
we will be posting that schedule here in the next few minutes, so be on the lookout for that as well.